The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. At that time Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He who is a hired hand and not a shepherd, who does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. He flees because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. And I have other sheep that are not of this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock, one shepherd. For this reason the Father loves me, because I lay down my life, that I may take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay down, and I have authority to take it up again. This charge I have received from my Father. The Gospel of the Lord. Today, my dear friends, as we come to the fourth Sunday of Easter, as we have reflected earlier, this is a time for all of us to reflect more and more and explore deep into the mystery of resurrection that we do not fully understand. There is no way that we can understand resurrection completely. That is why when we read the history of the church, we find that our early church fathers and theologians wanted the people to understand that Christianity is a mystery religion. That means we believe in mysteries. We live in the experience of the mysteries of life. So therefore, Christianity is for those who have the capacity to be, as they say, mystics. So you and I have to be in some way or the other in our day-to-day experience become more and more mystical in our journey. And of course, when we say mystical, we sometimes have the experience or the idea that when you are a mystic, you walk above the level of the earth, that you have this aura of holiness. No. As normal as we are, we all can become mystics. Now, today, in the gospel passage, we have Jesus saying something that's very, very unusual but unique. And what we see there is that Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. And the most specific saying that follows is, when he says, I am the good shepherd, I know my own, and my own know me. Now, in order to understand what he is trying to say, we all have to go to the image of the good shepherd, or image of the shepherd that you find in the Old Testament. If you go to the Old Testament, in the book of Genesis, the first shepherd that we find is Abel, son of Adam and Eve. Now, Abel was a shepherd in his own profession. That's what he did in order to live. But also in the history of salvation in the Old Testament, we have so many shepherds who became great and dedicated leaders of Israel. For example, Jacob, the leader of the people of Israel. And also David, he was a shepherd boy. But also when you call someone a shepherd, it's always in relation to bad shepherds. When you have shepherds, there are all kinds of shepherds. It's like we have teachers, we have good teachers, we have bad teachers. So when you use the image of a teacher or image of a shepherd, there are so many reflections, so many explanations, so many meanings that you can go into. That is why when we try to understand a mystery, we need images, because in and through an image, we go deeper into the mystery of what it means to be a shepherd. Now today, if you read the Gospel of John, why is Jesus calling himself a good shepherd? The chapter that went before, chapter 10, is chapter 9, where Jesus was healing a man who had a disability on a Sabbath day. So then, the so-called shepherds of Israel, that's the priestly leadership, found fault with him. They could not see Jesus healing someone on the Sabbath day. So now, again, you have the context of bad shepherding. When you have a leader or group of people who are not very happy when something good is happening, there is something wrong with them. They are shepherds, all right, but there is something that is missing. So in that context, Jesus says, I am the good shepherd, identifying himself as someone different from the political and religious leadership at that time, but at the same time giving a very profound message to the people at that time. My dear friends, I believe that most of us have not seen the shepherds in the Middle Eastern world. It was a profession, and if you watch them, you can see that when you are a shepherd, it's a very hard life. You're out there with your sheep. And of course, in Sri Lanka, we do have those who take care of buffaloes. I remember when I was small, living in Kurunegala area with my parents, there were always these herd of buffaloes. When you have buffaloes, the one who is guiding them, or the shepherd, has to walk them from their behind. You have to push them so that the buffaloes move. But a shepherd's story is different. A shepherd has to go in front, because the sheep, they say, are the stupidest animal in the entire Middle Eastern world. They are so dumb and so stupid. That's a given. Now when Jesus says, I am the good shepherd, the implication is, in other words, he's telling all of us, you are all stupid. You are all dumb. That's the implication. Of course, we are happy that he is the good shepherd, but we are the sheep who are so stupid. We just don't see things properly. And that's exactly what Jesus was saying. But again, he compares himself with the bad shepherd, because a good shepherd is different, though the sheep are dumb and stupid. Now, when I say this, my dear friends, of course, we can go on reflecting how good the Lord is, how genuine he was as a leader of people at that time. Yes, that's a given. But when you talk about the stupidity of the sheep, in reference to that, Jesus says, I know my sheep, and they know me. Now that's the point of departure for our reflection. In order to explain this, my dear friends, when you have someone who is fond or in love with a dog or a cat, I have seen it myself. There are sometimes men and women who are so close to their pets. It can be a dog or it can be a cat in Sri Lanka. I have often seen, in fact, even my mother used to do that. She would talk to the dog, what are you doing? Don't you understand? The dog has no idea when she says that, or anyone says that, come here, go there, eat this, don't jump, I love you, you love me, do you understand? All these things are being said to a pet. The dog or the cat, all what they can do is to look at you, look up to you. It's almost as if the dog or the cat understands, but they have no idea. We only have to assume that they have no understanding of whatever the language. They don't understand English, or they don't understand your Tamil or Sinhala, but they look up to you. And then what happens? Dogs and cats, or even the sheep, is the same. When they have someone who loves them, they look up to you and they begin to understand what the master or the leader or the one who loves them says to them, not necessarily in a rational sense, but in an intuitive sense. The dogs and cats, the sheep, they know exactly what you are telling them. Not because they understand the language, not because they understand your grammar, not because they understand what you are trying to say, but intuitive experience of what the master is saying. Now that's what when Jesus says, he says, I know my sheep. Of course they are stupid, but I know them. And they look up to me and they do understand what I am trying to tell them. In your life and in my life, my dear friends, the mystery of God is beyond us. There is no way that we will ever fully understand who God is. If you read Thomas Aquinas, a great doctor of the church, he says, if someone is able to say that I understand who God is, that God can never be the God that we believe in. That God is beyond your understanding. God is beyond. You cannot fully understand. Forget about His language. Forget about His communications. We have to accept that God is a God of transcendence. That is why, again, a great church father, St. Anselm, says, God is the thought that can never be thought. So that means God is beyond, God is above, God is transcendent. So in that sense, what Jesus says here is so clear. Like a sheep looking at the master, you don't understand the language, you don't know the grammar, you don't know what the person is saying, but you have an intuitive experience, an intuitive knowledge of what God is trying to communicate with you. Let me explain this, my dear friends, in another very concrete way. I remember some time ago meeting with someone who has been a great believer, and he was maybe 80, 85, and then in a conversation he told me something that I would never forget. He said, Father, I have been a great believer in God, and God has blessed me abundantly. I know that He has given me so many things. I don't understand why God was blessing me. But he said, I have always asked myself the question, why is it that God is not revealing Himself to me? I want to know who God is, but I don't understand. And I read books, I followed lectures, I did this, I did that, but I was not able to understand the mystery of God. But one day, he said, it dawned on me that whenever I was doing well in my business, there were times where all of a sudden things would fall apart. I would lose money, my investments would go down, and I'm completely lost. And I never understood why. If God is so good, why would God allow this to happen to me. And he said, in my own experience, I know, whenever I look back, I always realize that in those times, God was trying to tell me something strongly. Then I asked him, what do you mean? God was trying to tell you strongly. Then he said, whenever I was making so much of money, I always lost sense of my own limitedness of my life. So I would realize that I'm right in the ladder of success, and I forget a lot of things. When I fall down, I always had this intuitive feeling God was trying to bring me back to his own journey. Now, what I'm trying to tell you through this experience, my dear friends, God, the mystery that is beyond us, God, the one who do not explain things to us logically, would always communicate with us in and through our life experiences. And like a dog or a cat looking up to the master, we need to look up to that mystery which we do not understand and try to have this intuitive knowledge. Okay, this is what God is trying to tell me. So therefore, my dear friends, the mystery of God has to be experienced in and through our day-to-day life experiences. We may not sometimes understand why things happen and what make them happen, but at the same time, there is an intuitive communication, like a dog or a cat, knowing the master, what the master is saying and what the master is not saying. The stupid people that we are, that we need to have that intuitive knowledge in order to be able to be united with the shepherd who is there in our life journey. Now, my dear friends, when you say that as human beings we are stupid, we are dumb, it goes without saying. Look at any history of the world. You have always, in the history of most of the countries, you have men and women who were completely unsuitable for leadership. They have become leaders. If you read the Second World War, in the history of Germany, the Nazis were elected to power. By a vast majority, the Germans thought, here is the man to lead us. Here is the man who can save us. And they never saw through what they really had to see through. Why? An entire population of people were so stupid, so dumb, they failed to see what has to be seen in between. And Sri Lanka is no exception, my dear friends. Not only as a community, even as families, even as individuals, we can all live in this la-la land, sometimes in our relationships, sometimes in our day-to-day work, in our normal interactions with others. We all can live at the surface level. But a person who has that intuitive capacity to connect with the ultimate source of life will always be able to step back and ask ourselves, what is this all about? Why are all these things happening? Why is it that these things are all right under my nose? What is it that I need to learn? What I need to have is that capacity to sit back and explore and reflect and grow in that relationship with the mystery that is above and beyond us. In that sense, my dear friends, what Jesus says today is so relevant. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my own know me. That's the relationship that will take us into a greater experience of God, who is at the bottom and at the center of everything that is in this journey of life. Amen.